Ayo, did you miss me? Cause I missed y'all. As a quick disclaimer for the channel, my chapter 121 video was hit with a copyright strike by Shueisha and got taken down, which is why you don't see it on the channel anymore. Many people have been asking where that video went, and that's what happened. It's honestly wild to me because all I do is just show love to this amazing series, Kaiju number 8 on this channel. I feel like I have no malintent whenever I'm talking about Kaiju number 8, and I use everything within fair use, but it is what it is. We keep it pushing, right? It doesn't really matter at this point. And then I didn't get a chapter review posted for chapter 122 because me and my wife are actually in the process of buying a house, packing and moving right now. That's kind of why my background looks all stripped. You don't see my Chelsea flag. You don't see any of like my games, my anime stuff. So yeah, just kind of been really busy the last few weeks, but this chapter was one of the craziest kaiju chapters that we have ever gotten, so I had to come back and make a video for y'all today. And plus, like I said, I miss y'all. But on top of that, we have to talk about finally seeing the true form of this Daikaiju from the Meireki era. And tell me why whenever it first came out of number 9's body, the thing looked like a genie coming out of a lamp, dog. You can't tell me any different. So far, this thing seemingly has an impenetrable defense, and on top of that, it just resurrected every single kaiju in Japan that was slain during this war. That means kaiju numbers 11 through 15 are all back. And what's even crazier than that is Kikoru is truly the prodigy that she has been hyped up to be this whole series, because she is now the first Defense Force member that we have seen wielding 2 numbers weapons at the same time. When I saw her with those number 1 eyes at the end of the chapter, my mouth dropped. And I know y'all were the same way, and we'll talk about that in this video. So let's get into it. Now, chapter lucky number 123 starts off with the Daikaiju from the Meireki era finally making its appearance with its true form. It's hovering over the city, and it is wild to see just how big this thing is. As it's making its appearance, Kafka buzzes over and explains to everybody just exactly what this amalgamation of kaiju is, how it's from 400 plus years ago, and it is the same thing that caused the burning of Tokyo way back in the day. I thought that it was wild for me to see specifically Hoshina seeing this thing climb out of number 9's body. Hoshina is one person that has heard so many stories about this Daikaiju from back in the day because it slayed his ancestors, right? It killed his ancestors. So for him to hear all of these stories growing up, hear about how the way of the blade has been taught for so long and why it has been taught for so long, only to see this amalgamation and think to himself, not only is this thing brolic, but this is the thing that took out my ancestors. I can only imagine how much emotion Hoshina is overwhelmed with seeing this in the moment. But this Daikaiju wastes no time once it gets out of Kaiju number 9's body. It immediately launches a freaking basically world cleave towards Kafka, and it is wild to see its blast completely dice up the building that Kafka is standing on. Had Kafka not avoided this blast, he would have been caught up in that dicing just like that building. But right after Kafka dodges that blast, he immediately charges in head first, and this thing and Kafka just start exchanging blows head on until Kafka realizes that this thing is way more powerful than it was 400 years ago, and he can't just attack this thing by taking it head on. He tries to go around it to create an opening, and this thing, before Kafka can even find the opening, puts another one of those ancient rune attacks across Kafka's head and cuts his head clean off. Thank the Lord that Kafka is a full-blown kaiju now and just regenerates his head. It's also funny to see Kafka as a full-blown kaiju, right? To be able to do things like this. But as Kafka is regenerating his head, this thing lets out a loud yell, a yell that is so loud, bro, that Mina has to cover her ears. Everybody that's a scientist watching this fight from the outside in is wondering, what did it just do? What's happening? Only for Kurusu to realize that there are countless kaiju signals coming from all over Japan. This thing used Kaiju number 9's ability to make kaiju come back once they have been defeated, and every single kaiju that has been defeated during this war has now been resurrected. We see Iharu standing in front of the praying mantis type kaiju that Hoshina defeated right before going into battle. We see kaiju number 15 and its brain abilities being resurrected right in front of a bunch of soldiers. We see Aoi and Kaguragi standing on the field in front of those huge dinosaur looking type kaiju that Kikoru made her appearance on, taking those things out. And not only that, bro, we see the Baralic kaiju number 12 that Hoshina just got done taking out. What you have to realize is it took our strongest vice captains and captains in order to beat these Daikaiju. And now these things are not only resurrected, but what we saw in the beginning of this story is that anytime that these kaiju were resurrected, they also came back with a higher fortitude than what they came back before. If these kaiju are not only resurrected but stronger than they were before, how are we going to be able to handle an onslaught like this? And Kafka realizes that exact same thing. All of our forces are already so exhausted at this point. You can see it written all over the body language of people like Kaguragi and Aoi. You can see it written all over the body language of somebody like Iharu. Yes, they have gotten stronger, but can they keep up the onslaught that they've kept up for so much longer than what it's already been going against stronger kaiju than what they were before? It is the most terrifying situation that Japan Defense Force has ever probably been put in across the whole country, dog. It made me laugh a little bit to see Soichiro sticking his tongue out at all the zombie-ish type kaiju that were coming back and just saying ew, because Soichiro's such a pretty boy compared to Soshiro. But regardless, this is such a dire situation, bro. And after this happens, Kafka tells himself, I have to hurry up and take out this Daikaiju from the Meireki era as fast as possible, because these hordes of revived kaiju are already starting to close in on the defense force. And that is our only line of defense. I'm not even going to say last line of defense against these kaiju. Our only line of defense, because this is happening Japan-wide. They can take out a lot of our defense force all at the same time, dog. Kafka charges in towards this Daikaiju from the Meireki era because he knows that he has to hurry, because if he kills this kaiju, then all these other kaiju's activities should theoretically cease, right? But as he charges in towards this kaiju covers its whole body in like a shield of these ancient rune texts that it's also been placing across people's bodies to cut them up. And he does this to actually keep Kafka out. Once Kafka gets within a certain range of this kaiju, it lets off the ancient rune attack and cuts everything near it. And even Kafka realizes that he cannot get any closer than what he has gotten whenever it is just him versus this thing. Hoshina looks over and tells himself, this is bad. We're right back to square one, which means our key to victory right now. And Narumi cuts him off and says the numbers weapon 1. With my future sight, I am the one person that alongside number 8 can find an opening and we can try to stop this thing in one blow. But they are probably not going to have many chances to make this happen. Hoshina knows that Narumi doesn't have the strength anymore because his heart was damn near penetrated by this Daikaiju. And on top of that, he's just exhausted his suit beyond relief, right, bro? He already used it past what he was supposed to. His brain is probably scrambled a little bit. At this point, I think that it's canon to say that Narumi has CTE, bro. Like, he really got CTE like he was playing in the NFL. But Narumi lets us know that he's not talking about himself to be the one. He just said the numbers 1 weapon. And then next thing you know, you see some shots coming in to stop this Meireki Daikaiju from attacking Kafka. And Kikoru is standing there in the last panel, bro, with the number 1 eyes while wearing the freaking number 4 suit, wielding 2 numbers weapons at the same time. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And on top of that, bro, when did this happen? When did this happen? There's multiple ways that it can happen, right? I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility. I won't say out of the ordinary, because this is very out of the ordinary. To wield 2 numbers weapons at the same time is gonna be dope because she is broken at this point, but The major drawback is the fact that she's wielding two at the same time. So I have to imagine that she can't use them both as long as she would be able to just use one, right? Maybe the drawback is that she is going to wear herself out twice as fast, and we already know how hurt Kikoru was, bro. Number 15 was kicking Kikoru's ass before she finally used the Daruma dropper and handed her her business back, basically. But for Kikoru to be able to wield this, I imagine that we've seen Narumi's suit has a multitude of eyes across it. So maybe they actually ended up harvesting multiple eyes from the Kaiju number one's corpse. Or we also saw in B-side that Narumi was actually being given like number one cells directly put into his own eyes, and then his eyes kind of adapted over time because his cells were compatible with the number one cells. So there is also a possibility that Kikoru was compatible with the number one cells as well, and they've been giving her the cells into her eyes to actually see if she could have the same result as Narumi. So it's one way or the other. Either they gave her eyes directly from the corpse of number one, or they've been giving her cells from number one, and the same thing happened with her as what happened with Narumi, and they both manifested these number one eyes. Regardless, Kikoru literally was only watching Narumi's eye movements in order to see the attack patterns for this Daikaiju, and says that she's already ready to come in here and help Kafka in this fight. That is wild, bro. It's like the shotting gun at this point. We already knew that, but it is... I'm hyped. I'm hyped to see Kikoru fighting alongside Kafka, bro. I'm hyped that she's back in the battle, but y'all better not hoe my boy Reno. If Kikoru is having moments like this, I need my dog Reno Ichikawa to come in, and I'm talking about like Aokiji Ice Age and freeze everything in Tokyo or something, because Kikoru's entrance right here was mad. My mouth dropped. This Daikaiju don't know what it's in for. But at the same time, we don't know all the abilities that this kaiju has, and it was very eye-opening to see it bring back this ability of resurrecting all these kaiju everywhere. At this point, the best bet is not to beat all these kaiju that were resurrected. The best bet is to beat kaiju, or this Daikaiju from the Meireki era, as fast as possible to save everybody's lives. But we'll see what happens. Regardless, I will be there, and we will be talking about that next chapter. So again, man, if you watch this video, I don't have many predictions. I'm hyped to see how Kikoru and Kafka team up together to take this thing out, and when Reno Ichikawa is going to make his grand reappearance. The new generation is really about to show Japan that they are here for permanent to take care of them. And it's also wild, before we get to like the end of this video, is I didn't make a chapter video last chapter, but these last two chapters in particular, bro, I ain't want to believe it at first, man, but we really are getting to the end game of Kaiju number 8, huh? I think last chapter was really when I started thinking it a little bit, because I said, hey, like, the way that Kafka in his evolved form is fighting this Daikaiju from the Meireki era, and they have to fly way up in the sky just to make sure that all these humans are safe from their fight because of how much fortitude and strength is being projected from their fight. The series can't continue much longer with fights like this. Kafka literally can't fight around people because it's not safe anymore, bro. And then this chapter especially started making me feel like this is in-game, bro. I can't see it getting much worse than this. We've had this kaiju referred to in the last two chapters as the ultimate kaiju. We've seen this kaiju amalgamate in its true form, and now it's the strongest that it's been in 400 years, the strongest kaiju that mankind has ever seen. On top of that, it brought back all the other kaiju that we just got done defeating, creating a situation that feels so impossible to beat at this point. And that's really how the end game should feel. So I don't know, man. In my mind, these last two chapters really starting to make me feel like we are approaching the end game of Kaiju number 8, and I could see this series ending before the end of 2026. So continue all through this year, part of next year, and then I think that it'll probably end sometime next year. We'll definitely see, but regardless, I will be here for the next chapter. Hopefully y'all will too. If you watch this video, arigato. Thank you for supporting me, even though I didn't get that video up last week. And dang, bro, I can't believe Shueisha hit me with a copyright strike. Ain't that wild? Regardless, I will talk to y'all later, man. Have a good one, and peace.